Bounding into Comics and Brett R. Smith present An Escape from the Future.
Welcome to Escape from the Future, brought to you by Bounding into Comics. I'm your host and comic veteran, Brett R. Smith, and joining me again is my good friend, my frequent collaborator and comics writing legend, Chuck Dixon. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're gathered here on a special day. It's Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, Chuck.
Hey, happy Juneteenth.
I just want to remind everybody that Juneteenth originally was a Texas state holiday, which was codified in 1865. It's a holiday to commemorate the emancipation of the slaves, which we can thank a Republican president for. So it's a celebration and a remembrance brought to you by Republicans from a Republican president. Then another Republican president, Trump, made it a federal holiday. So again, happy Juneteenth to everybody out there that's watching. I wanted to catch up with you because the filming of Levon's Trade, which is an adaptation of your novel, you had some big news that dropped the other day, and that was that the filming wrapped principal photography,
Yes.
which is really exciting news. But first, for those that might not know, give a quick synopsis of the book series and what it's about, and then explain how Sylvester Stallone, David Ayer, and Jason Statham came into the picture.
Well, Levon Cade is a series of books written. There's 12 out. I'm playing around with the 13th. And Levon is he's a typical vigilante, lone wolf character, ex-military. He always manages to get himself into trouble. People have compared him to Jack Reacher, but Levon doesn't go looking for trouble the way Jack Reacher does. I like to think that these novels are grounded a little bit more in reality. And Levon really isn't a lone wolf character because he has a young daughter to protect. And so he's got stakes in the game where, he's putting not only himself, but his family in danger. And, basically it just came about when Sylvester Stallone approached me because I'd written an Expendables comic. And he liked the way I wrote it, if I would help him out on Expendables 2. And we just sort of hit it off. And I either sent him books or he looked up other stuff I had written, and he fell in love with the Levon Cade series. And he kept presenting it to Millennium and other studios, Lionsgate, as a possible series. We weren't getting anywhere. COVID came along. He wrote it up as a TV series. He wrote several episodes for a proposed TV series. And then apparently him and Jason Statham were hanging out together one time, and Statham was saying that I really need another franchise of my own. And Sly brought up Levon's Trade, and Jason read it, liked it, and Sly wrote the screenplay, and they got David Ayer because Statham and he had just done The Beekeeper, and brought David Ayer on board. And I couldn't be happier with this mix of guys working on this.
Yeah, no, it's a great mix. I mean, a lot of talent.
Oh yeah, because my concern with the novels was, would they keep my 1970s action movie approach to it? Because the books are kind of mean, and I had no problems with Stallone. I knew he can do mean. Yeah. And then they bring Ayer on board, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the master of mean. so I'm in real good hands.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the Schwarzenegger movie that you recommended to me that Ayer did that you said was like
Sabotage? It's the nastiest police thriller ever made, and Ayer wrote it and directed it.
Talk about mean, yeah.
Oh, nasty, just nasty.
So what's this been in production for 3 or 4 months, I think?
Well, it's been in pre-production. The principal photography actually didn't take that long. It was probably like maybe a 10-week shooting schedule.
Wow, that's quick.
So they got through it pretty quick. They emailed me a couple of times because they had questions about characters. I had characters that I had nicknamed but hadn't given full names, and they needed full names for some reason. Okay. And they kept telling me how well the shoot was going. Yeah, that there were no problems. They were on schedule or ahead of schedule all through it.
Wow, that's so exciting. That is really
pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, any idea when this is going to be released?
January 17th.
Wow, so we got a date.
Yeah. They're staying with the Beekeeper date. They're thinking that's a good time because Beekeeper did so well.
Yeah.
And if this does Beekeeper numbers or hopefully better, it's a 3-picture deal.
Yeah.
We're all signed for 3 Levon Cade movies.
That's exciting. Yeah, I mean, you and Sly have been at the altar a couple times with different stuff. So it's so awesome to see this finally pay off, and it's going to hit the big screen. I also read that Amazon MGM are handling distribution of the film, which is really exciting. They obviously see something really special here.
Yeah, and it's getting a lot of good buzz ahead of time. It's weird because when it was first announced, people were like, "Well, why don't they just make Beekeeper 2? Why are they doing this?" And then apparently, the entertainment reporters or whatever look further into the franchise, and they're like, "No, this is actually a better choice for Statham to begin a franchise."
Yeah,
in the beginning with the first book, and there's a lot to tell. And one of the things about the Levon Cade series that attracted Sly is that every book is different. There's no set formula. I'm not rewriting the same story over and over again. I've got a prison story, I got a war story, I got a Die Hard type story, I have a chase story, and they're constantly changing. And that's what he wanted to make the Expendables. He wanted to mix the Expendables up to tell different stories, but he got a lot of pushback from Millennium and wasn't able to do that.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a nice addition to the other properties that Amazon MGM have, like Jack Hart's Terminalist, Lee Child's Reacher. Levon Cade fits in perfectly.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect fit.
Yeah,
for, the macho, single white male vigilante hero.
Right. Well, that caveats nicely into my next subject. Hollywood has largely shunned the masculine white male action star from the big screen over the years, but recently the masculine white male action star has been making a comeback in hugely successful movies and TV. You've got, like I said, Chris Pratt in Terminalist, Alan Rickson in The Reacher, Jason Statham as Levon Cade now. You also had Tom Cruise as Maverick. Plus, we're now seeing numbers from this Deadpool Wolverine movie dropping this summer, and it's tracking somewhere north of 200 million and possibly $1 billion film. So, ironically, what Hollywood has dubbed pale, male, and stale is not only saving their collective asses at the box office, but it also turns out these are characters people want to see more of, despite what Hollywood says and thinks.
Well, I think part of the problem, it's not necessarily that it's, straight white males. It's that when they went the diversity route, they just sort of completely lost their way in every way. And, made all these girl boss movies, which don't make anyone happy. Women don't want to watch them. Men don't want to watch them.
Yeah.
And then they began to put diversity ahead of interest, ahead of character. They say, well, the straight white male, is back. It's always a moneymaker. Well, Denzel Washington action film is always a moneymaker.
Absolutely. Look at Bad Boys Ride or Die. That thing made a ton of money, and people have obviously forgiven Will Smith. But two male action stars in an action movie and an existing franchise just made a tidy sum.
Yeah, but see, there again, you're going back to making the kind of movies people want to see. It's when Zaslav took over Warner's, one of his first questions is, why aren't we making more gangster movies? Like, why aren't we making movies people actually want to see?
Right.
Stuff you're making. So yeah, I mean, basically Hollywood is at a point where they're so deeply in debt, they've got to start earning money again. They got to get serious about it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think we're finally seeing a return to making movies for a male audience.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it will accelerate to the point of what we had in the 80s or 90s. Do you?
No, I don't think we'll see a return to that, but I do like seeing the return of the mid-budget action film. The spate of horror films. There's more horror films in production right now than in all of cinema history.
Yeah.
Because they're earners. For me, the bellwether is if we see the return of the mid-budget comedy, then we'll know, okay, they've come to their senses.
Right. What was the budget on Levon's trade?
I don't know. I didn't do the numbers. My advance was tied to the budget.
Okay.
And all I know is they raised the budget according to the check I got.
That's cool. That's cool.
So but I think it's still mid-budget. It's not. There's nothing in Levon's trade that requires $100 million to be spent.
I just think that's smart, man. I mean, you're putting yourself in such a better position on opening day, and if they can get the buzz up, this thing will, clear its budget within a couple days, and that's the way Hollywood used to make movies.
Well, I think knowing Sly and knowing the people he's involved with, I kind of think negative costs were covered before they started shooting.
Yeah,
because they were pre-selling this everywhere. There's probably a hut in Borneo set to start showing it on January 17th.
Have you seen a bump in your in sales of your books?
Yeah, there was a big bump when it first got announced, and the bump lasted like 2 months. It's starting to slow down a little bit, but
Yeah.
as the movie gets out there more,
Yeah,
I'll see another big bump.
yeah. You got to do a new edition with Statham on the
absolutely.
cover.
Absolutely. I'm already talking to the publisher, and I said,
Yeah.
you want me to get with Sly and get some publicity stills when we do a movie tie-in edition.
Oh,
I
that's
just
just
definitely just for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we're also seeing a lot of films being adapted from books. And it kind of reminds me of the 70s, where you had guys like Mario Puzo, Peter Benchley, Eric Siegel, Michael Crichton, all these great authors whose works were adapted into box office hits, some of which are box office blockbusters like Love Story and The Godfather, Jaws.
Right.
Now we have huge success from the works of Jack Carr, Lee Childs, Elmore Leonard, and others. Do you
Right.
think adaptations of already successful books and book series will continue and accelerate?
If they're smart, they will.
Mhm.
Because gone are the days when they can start a movie without a completed screenplay,
Mhm.
and just hope that by throwing writers at it, that they can get through to the end, because they just don't have that kind of money to waste.
Yeah.
They are I mean, I don't think the public realizes what dire straits all of these studios are in. I mean, tens of billions of dollars in debt,
Yeah.
and they've got to claw their way out of this.
Mhm.
They waited too late, obviously. But
Well, yeah, and something else I was thinking about is the adaptation of books another sign that Hollywood and its writers are completely creatively bankrupt. You know, they're not only out of ideas, but also can't make success with the plethora of existing IPs and franchises that they own. So they have to mine the works of other successful writers like
right,
you and others, even if they're not woke or it's for a predominantly male audience like Jack Carr.
right.
It's just kind of crazy. And I think, something I wanted to ask you as well. Do you think, like I do, that a lot of the problem with the current writers in Hollywood is that they're DEI hires, not based
Yeah,
on talent, or
absolutely.
merit?
Absolutely. And the other thing is you'll get a writer and he gets buzz, but nobody can tell you where does buzz come from?
Right.
And the guy's never completed a screenplay,
Right.
but he's already got buzz and he's already got a 5-picture deal. And then by the time those 5 pictures come out and everybody realizes, wow, this guy sucks. By that time they've spent, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Instead of doing what you're saying they're doing now, but what old Hollywood did was, if you wrote a hit play or had a best-selling novel, Hollywood tried to woo you out there because they figured you had something.
Right.
You had that Barton Fink feeling, and they tried to get you out there. And now they just seem to get these guys out of film school, who I guess they do a good pitch at the production meeting.
Yeah.
They don't deliver. I don't want to name names, but there's been a number of people that I've heard, oh, his screenplay is brilliant. And you see the movie and it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And now there's 4 other movies in production based on this guy's buzz.
Yeah. Yeah. I was interviewing Graham a couple months back and we were talking about that great clip of Frank Zappa talking about why the music industry changed.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, he's like, the old cigar chomping old guys in the tweed suits who the musicians, the A&R guys would bring them
Right.
new music, new records. And they just kind of sit there and say, I don't know.
Right.
What is it? Who knows? Throw it out there. Let's see what happens. And then those guys end up, they bring in a hippie. They say, well, let's get a hippie in here because, he knows what's cool. Right.
Right.
And we'll get him to just bring us our coffee. And then that guy who brings the coffee, that hippie, ends up being the A&R man. and then
Yeah.
he becomes the gatekeeper going forward. And it's like, I think about these DEI hires and these people in HR with the DEI PhDs and ESG and all this stuff. And I just think to myself, that's that hippie. Those
Yeah.
are those
Yeah.
people now. And we were better off. And Zappa's overall point was, we were better off with those old cigar chomping old guys in the tweed suits who were just kind of like, who knows? Throw it out there. Let's see what happens. You know what? Maybe we'll get a one-hit wonder. And that's enough, right? That's enough to, feed, Leif Garrett for the rest of his life.
Right. Right.
Or any of these one-hit wonders. But now you don't have that anymore. You don't have that risk-taking, because that A&R guy, that person with the PhD in DEI, they say, oh, no, that's not what's cool. That's not what people want. This is what people want. It's weird.
And that guy works hand in hand with the talent to basically rape the company for as much money as they can get. I mean, I've seen that in comics. But, back in the day, those cigar chomping guys, they ran the numbers. Mm-hmm. And they thought, well, these kids want to do some surf music. Okay, we'll give them some studio time. What's that cost?
Right.
We'll have them sign a contract. That don't cost anything. Mm-hmm. And then if it goes somewhere, we all make money.
Right.
And I think Hollywood lost sight of that. It's like, we're just going to throw $100 million at this thing because some hippie here said it's cool.
Right.
You're never going to see that money again, which is why, again, they're making horror films. Somebody in the studio, some old cigar chomping guy said, we got to make these, $500,000 $1 million budget horror films because you always make money on it. There's always money in the banana stand.
Right. Exactly. Do you think that this DEI model at its core is designed to fail because it's not based on talent or merit? Plus the demand for diversity that they enforced can't find the necessary talent because it simply just doesn't exist. Right. That demand, the demand is outstripping talent. And I just kind of think to myself that this whole DEI endeavor will ultimately crash and burn. Do you think that's going to happen and it'll go away at some point because it just doesn't work? It's kind of designed to fail at its base.
Well, I think in the airline industry, it literally has crashed and burned. It has to, because it hopefully we'll survive it. Well, we will. We'll survive it. We'll get past this period. But the thing is, I mean, when you're looking at equity and inclusion and all that stuff, again, it's mathematics. You're looking at restricting your talent pool, and of course there are talented people amongst the diverse crowd that they want to hire from, but are the gatekeepers that they've hired smart enough to even find those people? And I say no, they are not, because look at the deadheads you have working on some of these big franchises. And working everywhere in every industry, just making stupid decisions from retail chains to automobile companies to airline companies. They're just making really stupid decisions.
Yeah.
And again to math, you're actually turning off a majority of your potential audience. We're still, I'm sorry to say this, we're still majority white country.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. So your talent pool has to include everybody if you're going to get the best people.
Right.
And the other thing is, I think it's demeaning in the long run, because this DEI thing, it casts a pall over anybody who is a minority or a woman or whatever, because you're thinking, well, did you get the job because of DEI? And that's terrible, because there's some extraordinarily talented people who are going to get tarred with that same brush. They're going to have that level of doubt. I mean, you go to the doctor's office, right? And you never see the same doctor. And who thinks when the doctor, up until now, who thinks when the doctor walks in, oh, he's Indian or he's Hispanic or I don't even notice. Who cares?
Right.
This person is here to take care of me. I don't care. But now you can't help it in the back of your mind thinking, how did they get their job?
Right.
Were they allowed in the medical school because of
quotas,
their color, their gender, their sexual preference, whatever, which is immaterial to me as a consumer.
Yeah, I would hate to be thought of as a diversity hire. That would really suck, especially all the time and effort you put into honing your craft and.
Well, I would hate to be thought of as a white privilege hire. You know,
Well, that too. I mean, you and I
on the other foot. Like, I earned this. You know, I'm where I am because I fought to get here.
right, right. Well, and you fought to get her over what 50 years. I mean, you got a lot of time in, and I just think that sometimes that and talent has got to outweigh whatever color skin you are or what your gender is. It's just a bizarre way of thinking, but I think at some point,
the thing is, it's all meant to fail because it's all part of left wing. It's all part of socialism.
Yeah.
And socialism is a system, designed to fail.
Sure.
Because it can't succeed because success isn't part of the equation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's going to pass, man. And I think it's just going to, it's interesting that Inside Out movie that Pixar came out. Apparently they kept all the messaging out, and it's done a lot. It's done good at the box office, and a lot of people like it. And they seem to be returning to just entertaining first, which is,
we'll see. Disney's going to be a holdout. Disney's going to be the last company that just clings to woke till they have to shutter the place.
I think you're right. I think everyone else will bail on this stuff before Disney ever does. I think they'll be the last holdout for whatever reason. But it's
activist investors.
Yeah.
They would have already filed Chapter 11 years ago
if
it wasn't for activist investors.
Well, now Nelson Peltz is gone. He cashed out. He made a nice little tidy sum. And I just think to myself, okay, well, what's the plan next? Right. It's just, I guess, just let it burn, and they'll rule over the ashes until the shareholders finally say enough. But the left seems to love ruling over the ashes of what they burn down and they destroy.
As long as they're ruling, it's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was a Pixar movie, and it is arm's length. So I do think that there's something significant about that. But at the same time, Pixar's will never be what it was without John Lasseter. I think he's over at Skydance or somewhere. He's running some other animation company, and they're putting out great stuff. But I just think this stuff can't just by the way it's designed. It's crashing by design. That's essentially what DEI is. Right. It's not going to yield anything that's going to help them dig out of the debt and return to pre-pandemic levels, which they're still not at. The theater chains are still below pre-pandemic levels. And, you start to wonder, is there going to be theater chains going forward with these types of numbers coming out these movies? Because really, are we just going to bet the farm on a Deadwood Wolverine every year? Is that what they're going to do? They're just going to put one thing up that makes lots of money and then take that money and make a bunch of bad crap. I don't know.
That was the business plan before now, but it can't be the business plan going forward.
That's what I think too. I think they're too much in the hole.
But they're way too much in the hole. I mean, there's always, we like to think of the studio heads, Louis B. Mayer and Harry Cohn, guys like that, running the show, big Hollywood moguls.
Bob Evans, yeah.
But they all answer to the money people in New York, whose names we never knew.
Yep.
And, I got to think there's still people like that in this business, or like, you got to start making money.
Yeah.
Or we're shutting you down.
Did you ever check out?
Sell you off.
Did you ever watch The Offer?
No, everybody tells me I need to watch that. I really need to watch that.
You should watch it now because Al Ruddy, who is the star, that's who Miles Teller plays, and it's based off his book. Al Ruddy just died. So I think he was 90 something. And this guy produced so many great films, so many fun, huge, successful films. But the series is really good, and it's interesting because it really gets into the nitty-gritty of the deal making and the behind the scenes type of stuff that went on between Al and the brass at Paramount at the time. And fortunately, you had a real risk taker who was heading Paramount at the time who just said, "Go do it, make it happen." It's definitely a rocky road, and that's what makes it a great series and a great story because it wasn't made easily. It was
none of the stuff made easily. None of it. It's because you've got once upon a time Hollywood was run by guys who loved movies. Mm-hmm. It's not run by guys who love movies anymore. They don't give a crap about movies.
What do you think they do love? It's just money.
They love money laundering and they love moving money around. If you look at the money, if you look behind the scenes, the money spent and the money earned, it's undeniable. This is a money laundering business.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason anybody would put $1 into this stuff to actually expect a return. So they're whatever they're doing. I mean, I just finished reading Michael Richards' book, the guy who played Kramer on Seinfeld. Amazing book. My favorite celebrity biography ever. It's an amazing book. And he tells the backstory on Seinfeld. And when Michael Richards auditioned, everybody in the room's cracking up. Everybody in the room's dying laughing. And the head of NBC programming, when the audition's done, Jerry says, that's the guy I want. And the head of programming says, well, if you want funny. And Seinfeld said that's when he realized they don't know what funny is. They're not even interested in entertainment. It's like, if I want funny, it's a comedy show.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically what you're looking for.
And I've run into people like that, people that are just like, you don't know anything about movies. You don't even care.
Yeah.
No, their suggestions are always things from other movies that made money.
That's their only reference.
That's their only reference. Like this, well, this worked here. Just do it again.
Plug it in. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, being creative doesn't really work like that.
No.
So, and that's really the divide I see. And it's the difference that you're talking about from those 70s producers who understood what happens when you hire a certain director. You know, you're hiring it's like Alan Ladd, probably or Alan Ladd Jr., one of the greatest producers of my life.
That was a visionary. He knew absolutely. He knew what worked when he saw it.
Absolutely. I mean, from Star Wars to Blade Runner. I mean, there's a great documentary called Laddie, which I encourage everyone to check out. It's a quick watch. It's narrated by his daughter, but it is fascinating. When you get into the mind of guys like this and Bob Evans, who was also an absolute genius at Paramount. But these guys understood. It's like Alan Ladd said one time when they were the producers were trying to fire Ridley Scott off Blade Runner. And this is like 3/4 of the way through the movie. These guys wanted to fire him and basically take over and direct it themselves. And Alan Ladd Jr. just said, look, we hired Ridley Scott. We want a Ridley Scott movie. We're going to get a Ridley Scott movie. No, I'm not going to fire him. You know, let's just get this movie wrapped. And, you know, even though that's not a great success from the standpoint of the box office, you know, it's probably a bad one to pick. But Star Wars, that's another one that would not have happened without Alan Ladd Jr. But I just think that these guys understood that hire the creatives to be creative, and good things will come out of that, and stay out of their way. You know, I mean, how often when you and I have worked together and we're just left alone, good things happen. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, unfortunately, in the film business, you can't leave people alone. You know, because some people will take advantage. But but if you've got somebody, you know, a talent powerhouse, you know, who has a vision and knows what they want and knows how to get it, you just leave them alone.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, in defense of the money people, sometimes that doesn't work out. You know, Brian De Palma on Bonfire of the Vanities, terrible idea. And leaving him alone was a terrible idea. So, you know, but you know, but you got to have an Alan Ladd Jr. who knows when to say stop and when to say go.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Sam Peckinpah. And when Sam Peckinpah was, you know, always butted heads with the studios, always had problems with them. But the thing is, you had to have somebody there to say, Sam, stop filming. You've got everything. Stop filming. And then you had to go in the editing room with him and say, okay, Sam, stop editing. You've got it now. You know, we're done. There's the movie.
Right.
Because some guys will just go on and on and on and on. I mean, it's amazing any movie ever gets made. I mean, like David Mamet said, movies only get made because they have a start date for the union workers. You know, and that's when the money's really being spent.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to start, you got to keep going, and you got to finish it.
Right. Yeah. You know what I was thinking the other day was we need another Orion Pictures. I think about Mike Medavoy in the 80s who ran that studio, and guys like John Davison who produced RoboCop and other films. What a great risk-taking studio that was. And they did more with less. They operated on small budgets, but they hired great talents like Stan Winston and Rob Bottin. You know, you wouldn't have the Terminator, RoboCop. I mean, on and on and on. There's so many great movies that came out of Orion. And I think
you're kind of seeing that with Sly and Bill Block and David Ayer. I mean, I'm hearing from other people that they're calling them the F Hollywood crowd. That
Nice.
they're sort of forming their own little corner. They're tired of being told what to do, and and they've all got great track records. I mean, Bill Block is an amazing guy. Guy's never produced a bad movie. And so those guys are going to. I think they're your new Orion pictures.
Yeah, you mentioned Sly, and I was thinking about all the stuff that Sly did with Carol Co. as well.
Yeah.
Great movies from Carol Co. And these small, independent, big risk takers. And I just think maybe the A24s and the Neons, somebody somewhere there, or with Sly, somebody's going to fill that vacuum. And it's going to be with, like you said, mid-budget stuff that can easily clear the hurdle of opening day and make their money back, and then start raking in profits.
Yeah, I mean, crowd pleaser movies. I mean, I appreciate what A24 is doing, but I don't see them making a lot of crowd pleaser movies.
Me neither.
I like a lot of their output. I appreciate they're taking risks with some iffy material now and again, but I don't see them even looking to do a blockbuster, which is fine.
No, same
they
here.
want to do mid-budget and keep making money. Yeah, God bless you.
Yeah. I watched Ferrari, Michael Mann's Ferrari from Neon, and it's this $90 million independent film.
Yeah,
it's awesome. I really liked it. It's maybe not the caliber of Heat, but Adam Driver's fantastic. Patrick Dempsey stole it for me. He's fantastic in it. It's beautifully shot, and it's a real love letter, kind of like Ford versus Ferrari, to race cars and the men that drive them, the masculine, tough men that get in these death traps, which is basically what they were back then.
Sure.
But I think the future is bright, man, and I think that I think we're starting to see the pendulum kind of start to shift culturally. And I think we're going to get mass audience appeal. I think that's going to be the thing that successful studios return to. Sony, they just bought a theater chain. Sony just bought Alamo Drafthouse.
Wow.
Yeah, which is huge. Yeah, that is huge, dude. I mean, it marked the first time in 75 years that a studio owned a theater chain. So all kinds of things are shifting.
They do away with that law?
I don't know. I don't know how they got around it. Maybe it's because it's privately owned. It's a family operated franchise. It's not national. I don't know.
That's weird, because I mean, that was the beginning, that and taxing movie tickets that was the death knell of the theaters started in the 50s.
Yeah, but I think things are shifting, and I think in a good way, and hopefully we'll also start to get get some of these DEI people out the door. You know what I mean? But like you, I think Disney's going to be the last holdout. So
I think, quite honestly, beyond losing their phony baloney jobs, I think the Hollywood people were most frightened of the foreign markets, the foreign film producers eating their lunch, because foreign films didn't go in for any of this woke diversity stuff.
That's true.
And you look at what Godzilla -1 did here. I think that was a warning bell to them, because there's amazing stuff being produced overseas, and they've far outstripped us in the last few years for creativity and taking risks and producing quality entertainment.
What's to stop a Sony from hiring that guy who did Godzilla -1 and bringing them on to something like Spider-Man?
Yeah, making a $10 million Spider-Man movie that beats the crap out of all the rest of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the future's bright. It is.
Oh no, because it's like when people say, to me, our comic books dead. Not the comic books aren't dead. As long as there's a kid sitting at a kitchen table drawing a comic book on a piece of loose leaf paper, comics are alive.
Oh yeah, well, it's like we were talking about.
Marvel and DC are dead,
right?
But they're not everything.
No, we were talking off air. This is the most exciting indie market that I've ever seen. I think you would agree. It's healthy. It's thriving. It's getting bigger. It's attracting.
It's diverse. Ooh, in a very real way.
Yeah. Well, it's attracting so much big talent away from the big two at this point. Creator-owned stuff. I look at the Skybound stuff, and it's just kind of like, wow, what's left? What's left at Marvel and DC? I don't know.
No, nothing. It's over with. I mean, I'm hearing serious rumblings about DC ceasing publication.
Wow.
Just licensing. I heard there are offers from Skybound to basically buy the DC license.
I think that would be a smart move.
Well, it's the only move they have left. I mean, they can't keep doing this. They can't keep. I realize that the money that DC loses is pocket change, but right now they need all the pocket change they can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be exciting. The Zaslav guy is, he's carved billions off of their debt. I mean, I think the guy's brilliant. But every penny counts. So get rid of DC and make some money off of licensing.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about how Marvel, the big two, can't operate as niche publishers, which is what they've been trying to do for the last, whatever.
Boutique publishers. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's insane. It's insane. They got to go back to, mass appeal, kind of like what we're talking about with films, and get back to making the type of entertainment that most Americans want to go and escape the world into,
right?
And that's the way forward. So, well, it's exciting, man. It's great to hear about Levon. I didn't know we had a date, so I'm excited.
Oh no, absolutely no. They had a date before they started filming.
Oh, did they? Okay, all right, awesome.
Cool. It's all pre-sold. All this stuff's all pre-sold. It's just they lay down the rails, and you just got to stay on the tracks.
Right. Well, it sounds like they're there.
Yep.
Well, sadly, we're out of time. Chuck, what is the best way our viewers can support you and stay up to date on everything you have going on?
I have a page on Subscribestar, Chuck Dixon, and I've got a YouTube channel, Chuck Dixon, which I recently took the ads off because I'm just sick and tired of the ads. I don't want to put people through that. But it's a good place to catch up with me, see what I'm doing, and ask me some questions because it's Ask Chuck Dixon.
Yes. Yeah. I'll link to all that stuff so people can check it out.
Cool.
For more videos like this one, subscribe to Bounding in the Comics channel on YouTube. Also, make sure and like this video and leave us a comment. Have you read any of the Levon's trade novels? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out with us, and see you next time.